What's going on, guys? All right, so we're gonna be talking about some of the trades I took on German 40. Right, so I don't really trade this pair. However, it was kind of clean, so I added it to my list. Now, if we take a look at German 40 on the daily time frame, okay, what we see is we had this move lower, okay, sweeping this right here, okay. So we understand liquidity was swept, okay, and then ever since then we moved to the upside, okay. Now we moved to the upside and we induced buyers here, okay. High was taken out, closed above, whatever, however people want to look at it, but took out the high, induces buyers into the market, okay. Then we have this move down, and you can see it built liquidity moving lower, okay, and then swept all this right here, okay. And what that does is takes out, let's say, the early buyers, okay. So people that were getting in here, involving themselves in here, they ultimately end up getting trapped, okay. So what ends up happening is we get this move lower, okay, induces some sort of traders, because we understand buyers and sellers are everywhere. Now what ends up happening is we get this move up and we take out this, okay. So this is very, very important. This part right here that I just drew on, that's very important. Obviously on the daily it doesn't really look like much, but if I go down to the 4-hour, right, it's a high, okay. So it takes out that, induces some sort of buyers, okay. Now this right here, because it took out the high, induces some sort of buyers. People are trying to buy, and ultimately this low becomes a trap, okay. So let's draw a red box to show where the trap is. All right, so anyone buying before this low is taken out is essentially going to be trapped, okay. Whether they buy here, from this low, whatever, they all get trapped. Now what ends up happening is we actually stalled here for a while, and that's because this was a liquidity block, okay. So it needs to build liquidity there to take it out. So that ends up happening. We get this consolidation for about, I believe it was 2 weeks. Yeah, so like 13-14 days. We had 2 weeks of just price building up, okay. We then had a move lower, sweeping this low right here. However, in real time, okay, when I was looking at German 40, I actually wanted German 40 below here, okay, because I understand price taking out this high right here induces some sort of buyers, right? And because it induces some sort of buyers, I understand that, this could be used as liquidity, okay. So what ends up happening is we get the sell-off, we take out the low. Now I didn't buy straight at the low because obviously, like I said, this low was still on the cards for me. However, if I go back on the 4-hour time frame, we then had a move up, okay. And the thing is, once we've had this consolidation, we've had this move lower, it took out lows, okay. Took out this low right here, as well as the low over here, okay. So what that does is it induces sellers into the market, okay. So essentially any reactions from below these highs, it's essentially going to be traps, okay. It's going to be fuel for us to, let's say, buy into the highs, okay. So false sell-offs, and yeah, pretty much. So if let's say the 4-hour time frame is a little squeezed up, let's go to the 1 hour real quick. So on the hourly time frame, what we can see is we had internal structure being built, okay, moving to the upside. So we moved to the upside, we built these internal structures, okay. Now before we talk about the internal structures, quickly let's look at this area right here, okay. So I seen this right here, we took out the high, then we took out the low, okay. So essentially it's a liquidity block. So I understand we could get some reactions from here and possibly have the move from here, right? So I just needed price to basically come into the highs, respect it, okay? Because once it respects it, because we had this BOS, right? it respects it. Now we are respecting structure. Okay. And if we respect structure, we start building liquidity there. So once we had, obviously we already have liquidity here. However, we came into here, we built liquidity there. We had this sell off, okay, taking out the lows right here, inducing sellers, okay, simple. So we induced sellers in this area. Now, sellers liquidity is obviously up here, but looking at the hourly over here, we understand, right? We had this low taken out, okay? We got this pullback and then a lower low, okay? So in, let's say, current time, or not current time, but this PA right here, we understand, structurally speaking, right? This is the low, this is the lower high, and then the lower low. So where do sellers get trapped? Okay, right here. Okay, and we also swept something over here. Talk about it in a second. So this right here, essentially, even though we're respecting here, this is, it respected a liquidity block, moved away. Okay, this becomes another liquidity block, and so we can anticipate reactions. Obviously, overall, our direction is bullish now, right? Because we are respecting liquidity and moving out of there. So we understand we want to buy up there. Now, we also have to be able to, how do I say it? We have to be able to anticipate certain moves, okay? So when this happened, this sell-off right here occurred, okay? I understood that buys can occur from here because this is a liquidity block, okay? Simple. High taken, low taken, okay? Took out liquidity and then moved away. So we got a liquidity block right here. Let me just turn this blue for now. Okay, I entered as soon as price tapped into this imbalance right here. Okay, this one right here. As soon as price came into that imbalance, I entered my position and I kept my stops below the low. All right, so simple. I targeted the highs. All right, because I did expect it to go to the highs. However, I also anticipated shorts occurring as well. Okay, as soon as these highs were taken out. Okay, so what ends up happening is we take out the highs, we have this move lower. We can also see we broke structure here. Okay, pulled back, respected the highs. So what does that tell me? We have liquidity above here. Okay, so let's mark it red, respected that. So we have liquidity above here. Okay, so what ends up happening, we clear out this low, inducing sellers, and then obviously we take out this, and then we take out the low again. This is where I got stopped out break even, right? And I was okay with it. I was okay with going break even, to be honest, because I've already secured a little bit up here. Okay, so I secured a little bit above that high because I did anticipate that move happening. This move lower, and yeah, pretty much. Got the rest got stopped out break even, all good. We moved to the upside, and then what did we do? Right, we took out this high right here, and what does that do? Right, look at it in terms of, let's say, people that are trying to buy. Okay, we just had break of structure. You know, people are trying to buy, and I understand that I can't buy because we had this break of structure here. We took out the high. I cannot buy unless price comes below this low right here. Okay, I can't buy unless price comes below here. So the important thing is understanding where we can buy and sell. Okay, we don't want to be early, we don't want to be late, we want to be right on time. So we look for certain areas, like for example here we just respected this low right here, okay, and we moved away. And not only do we move away, but we also took out this high right here, inducing buyers. Okay, so now that I understand that buyers are also induced, right, if it is going to short and take out liquidity and needs to take out buyers liquidity, it's going to take it out here. Okay, now initially I did want price below here, this lower here, so that's why my risk on this trade was a bit lower than usual, right? Because obviously I want to be trying to anticipate all the moves that can occur. Okay, and because of that, the trade was automatically not an A plus setup. So what ends up happening is we get this sell off, we take out the lows. Okay, now I could have entered straight at this low, but at that time I was not convinced. Okay, I was not convinced the price was going to move to the upside right away. I thought maybe it can sell off and ultimately come for the low to the left. Okay, so because of that, all I did was just wait. Okay, literally just be patient and price will give you a proper entry. Okay, what ends up happening if we actually, let's talk about this. We have this move lower, okay, from A to B. We take out these lows, okay, and what does that do? Simple. We induce sellers, okay. So now sellers are induced. If we look at it in terms of sells, we get this pullback, comes into POI, we get this break of structure, pullback, come into this area right here, then we get that another break of structure, okay. So we understand a lot of sellers are trying to get involved, okay. So they're just waiting for that pullback and then that drop again, okay. So any, let's say, sells from these areas are essentially just going to be traps, right? Here, if I go on the 15-minute, open it up, you guys can see it a lot better. Let me just grab this high right here. Okay, and grab this low right here. Okay, any reactions from here? Trap. Any reactions from these highs? Trap. Okay, so I should grab this whole area. This one right here, because this is where it reacted from. Okay, so we get this reaction from this high right here, this POI. Okay, we get that sell off. We take out internal structure. Okay, and what that does is look at it in terms of, let's say, retail traders that want to enter early or whatnot. They just want to enter sells because this break of structure right here. What they're doing is they're looking for a break of structure inside of these areas, right? So they'll wait for price to come into their POI. They'll go to the lower time frames, look for that break of structure. Obviously, I'm on the 15. If I go on the 5, it'll look a lot better. Look at that, right? We get price action. We get this structure moving higher, okay? And then from the high, we get that sell-off inducing sellers, okay? And very, very simple. I'm just gonna go back on the 15 just so we keep it just easier to mark out and stuff. So we have a move up, okay, after taking all this liquidity. Now I did not enter here either, okay. All I waited for was a liquidity block to form, which it did right here, and then we had to move up, taking out this high. However, it was respecting this high over here, okay, respected that high. And then what we do, or what we get after respecting the high, is simple. We induce higher as well right here, and just looking at it in terms of, let's say, this simple structure, we build at this low right here, okay. Simple. We built at this low, we had this move higher, right, and then we ultimately come and trap the buyers, okay. Entered buys right here as soon as the low was taken out, and then kept my stops below the liquidity block, and then targeted the highs, okay. Very, very simple trade towards the highs, okay. And there you go. We had entry, stop loss, and then target was ultimately up here, okay. Understanding that that's where seller's liquidity is. Now yeah, pretty much that's about it for German 40. And yeah, see you guys in the next video.